Already? Are we online? Okay, everyone. We are starting our online and hybrid meeting session, open session 2. So I would thank you all of those that are joining us online for following us. This session will be recorded so that it can be used for educational purposes, also for the benefit of the project, and for you to be able to share it with everyone that is interested in knowing more about XpanDH, but also about the European Electronic Health Record Exchange format. Here in the room, we have all project partners. We have had one full day of work. There is material that will be made available online on the first online session. That was very instructive. Today, we have a second one, and these constitute 2 important assets online that will be material for educating. But also, we have discussed here in the closed part of the meeting, which is normal for a European project, that we want to keep our consortium as open as possible. So do keep contacting us throughout the 2 years of the project, and we will find a way to engage you in many ways. Today, we have a very busy session. So we will start with preparing actions for the European Health Data Space. We will then talk about digital health uptake and other ecosystem eHealth projects. We will move to digital health uptake and other eHealth projects 2 times, which is it's going to be well presented. Industry expectations about the exchange format, and how can we, think about engaging industry, which has multiple dimensions and multiple parts of the industry. We're just having a conversation. It's not just about IT vendors, it's about IT implementers, it's about system integrators, it's about interoperability company facilitators, so consulting companies as well. We need to think broadly about this industry. And then an initiative that has started more than a year ago, Hospitals on, well, not even 1 year ago, but close to 1 year ago in March, Hospitals on FHIR. So Catherine and Giorgio will give us an update on that, which is a large community that has been growing. What does interoperability mean for patients? So I think this is a very important topic. We have been discussing how to explain the exchange format. I just was on the call with a journalist here in Portugal trying to explain in Portuguese language what is the European Electronic Health Record Exchange format. And as you can imagine, first, there is no official translation yet because the regulation hasn't been published. When the regulation is published, we will have a Portuguese official translation, whatever it is. But right now I had to come up with an explanatory one. And I guess this challenge is the same in many other languages. And then next steps and call for collective action by me, just as a wrap up and tell you how we can work together. So thank you very much, Anderson, for setting up this wonderful session. And over to you to moderate all these speakers in good timing. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Enrique, for the presentation and introduction. So I would like to invite Alexander Berler to do the first presentation about the preparatory actions for European Health Data Space. Thank you so much.
So this is an exceptional position for me here. Normally it should be Professor Schizas, but he has to excuse himself. And since I somehow supported the whole effort, he asked me to make this 5-minute presentation on a joint action that has just been submitted yesterday and still has a long way to go until it's finalized. So let me see how this is working. Maybe. Oops, too fast. One back. Okay. Okay, so you remember the presentation from yesterday from Konstantin that tried to organize a little bit all the different actions. The joint action is a very specific joint action to support the implementation of the regulation on the European exchange, on the European data space, health data space in Europe. So it's quite a strange joint action because you have to make a plan to see what you're going to implement on a regulation that is not yet finished. So it's going to be quite challenging, but more or less, this is the basic concept. And it was an open call to all the member states with their basic contractual partners like ministries or competent centers, plus some affiliate entities that each member state selected. Can you just push it, because I think that's not. Okay, so this is a central framework that has been prepared by EDHA. And their main view is to try to create the technical documentation for the enforcement of the regulation. And we will see just after the different components that will be included in that regulation. And try to create an implementation guide, technical specification, and also some type of assessment framework for the what is called in the regulation, the certification of the electronic healthcare records across Europe, based on the electronic exchange format. So there are a lot of objectives. Those mostly come from the call and have been more or less addressed in this proposal that was delivered. And the idea, more or less, is to try to focus on the primary use of data. So not the secondary use of data that is mentioned in the regulation under finalization at the Commission. And the second part is to try to advance the digital single market and try to propose certification and labeling schemes across member states for electronic health records, but also for wellness applications. So more or less, that's the, let's say, in a nutshell, the scope of this joint action. Next slide. So obviously, there are a lot of previous activities, and I think not all of them are mentioned there, but eHealth, of course, is mentioned, and also XpanDH is mentioned. So all this is going to be reused there to try to create this implementation guides or guidelines. We will see how far the technical work can go. This is going to be more or less decided by how the regulation is going to be framed, which we don't really know yet. So next slide. So that's, I think we can go to the next one because I already said that. Save some time. So the joint action has been mapped to try to address all the technical work needed based on the distant chapters in the regulation. So the regulation is open and anybody can read it. I think it's already online on the Commission portal. And there are several parts that were mentioned there. We don't even know if all these parts will still be there. But the main target is based on how to create the HR requirements and specifications that will be based on the exchange format. So the work of XpanDH is very capital for the success of this joint action. At least this is my personal understanding. But the time this one is going to start somewhere in October, last quarter, I guess, of this year, we will have done some miles. So I think we should focus on what we could deliver to that one. So next slide. So I said it was quite a huge effort in a very short time, even with the small extension that was given. There are 25 countries and 50 organizations with the affiliate entities that each member state appointed. Some of them appointed even at the last minute. So, and just to close, this is more or less the arrangement that was done. So there are 4 work packages that are common to all joint actions: project management, dissemination, evaluation, and sustainability. And 5 work packages, which are the basic part of the work that needs to be done. So some general requirements for the electronic healthcare records, the follow-up on the upgrade on the e-prescription, the patient summary, to try to align them with the new regulation. Work package 7 is very important because it's how to define the new services. So lab reports, medical imaging, and discharge letters. Work package 8 is this effort to try to create documentation based on ISO standards about certification and labeling. And obviously the standards that we will be followed is the 17,000 family of standards on certification. And there is an ISO standard on, I think it's also used by Label to Enable, the 82304 or 302. Yeah. So those are the basis for the discussion, right? And the last one is there are some chapters in the, at least for the moment, in the regulation about try to create telehealth, or it's called telemedicine. It's a little bit old-fashioned for me, telemedicine, but anyway, to try to adopt telemedicine scenarios in a cross-border setting. So I think that's the last one, maybe. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alexander, for your presentation. So I would like to invite the next presenter, please, Carola. Carola, Victoria, Hurley, and Birgit, that you are on the online part. Thank you.
Okay, we tricked this presentation a bit away from other projects focus, but starting to get into specific perspectives on the ecosystem we're aiming to create. Could you pass the slides? Yes. First of all, just a little play of words on this. I was trying, while I was flying here, to find some attributes that we want this ecosystem to have. We want this to be engaging users, developers, and adopters. Wanted to be community focused on the communities we've been talking about, for example, the XNets. Open for innovation from stakeholders, industry that can build innovation based on electronic health record exchange interoperability. We want it to be sustainable beyond the project duration. And we want to say, of course, we want to say yes to interoperability in capacity, which we will help to build and to evaluate, and in actions, which will be the form of actually exchanging electronic health records. We want it to be scalable. We want it to be totally fair. We want it to be endorsed by key actors, of course, policy actors, but also other stakeholders within our XNets. And we want it to be mature, which has been explained in the work package before, a technical work package, which will be a main focus. Okay, but I don't want to talk anymore. I would like to invite Birgit. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Hello.
Oh, sorry, it's the wrong order. Anderson, could you please move further until Birgit's slides? I changed the order, but apparently it didn't come through. Okay, go ahead, Birgit.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Birgit Bauer. I'm from Germany, and I'm one of the members of this consortium, and I can't participate, unfortunately, because I'm living with MS, multiple sclerosis, and I'm in the middle of a relapse and I can't walk very properly. So I said I stay in the near of my doctor for doing some treatments. But this is not my perspective, or this is today the right perspective for this moment, because I'm coming to you here today as a patient. My electronic health record, and I can say this from a perspective as one, as a person, I have one, but it is not filled out yet. So there are no data available. I have asked my doctors also to come to me to give the data or transfer the data to my EHR, but they don't want to do it for different reasons. Some say it's time consuming, sometimes it's not fair paid, sometimes they say it's too complicated. There are also a lot of data missed because I'm living with MS for 18 years now. So 10 years are not available anymore because doctors can delete data after 10 years, and I guess they have done that. So I have big gaps in my health record and also in my history. Nobody's interested in the data I have collected myself. I'm collecting data every day. I'm doing symptom tracking. I'm also doing my fitness and so on. And I'm also working with electronic health apps and my lovely iWatch here. But nobody's interested. They say it's not officially approved. The risk to have not the care I should have is high because there are gaps in the data. So how can a doctor recommend the right thing for me if he doesn't know the data and he is not informed? I miss good decision making, good disease and decision management. Shared decision making also is not always possible because of the missed data. When I see a new doctor or I get hospitalized, I have to repeat my health data very often verbally because there is no connection within the health system. So there cannot be a connection to my electronic health record, or also I can't transfer my data, so I have to repeat myself again and again. So I did that some days before. So, and the other question for me as a patient is, what is if I need help in other countries? There are no data available. They can't read it, and this is my biggest problem. And this is also one reason why I didn't come to Lisbon this year. Next slide, please. So, and this is my big wish, a great electronic health record, a European one, in an exchange format in the best way. So I would have better disease management, and all patients would have that. And also HCPs would have, I would say, to do an easier job if they see more data and have all data available. I have more quality time with my doctor to discuss next steps or therapy options. I can do a better shared decision-making management with my doctors, and I have more time to take care about myself and to think about the things. I'm feeling probably better informed and motivated to do my therapy. And this is what we all want to do, that patients do the therapy. A diagnosis can be faster, recommendations also for therapy options. We can have more fast help in case of an emergency. Relevant data can be shared across borders, and this is much important. And data can be shared anonymously with research and development. So we have more and better research and development. So what we need, it's good, understandable communication for citizens to create awareness for the benefits of a European electronic health record. We need educational programs. Hashtag patients included. We must be involved in that things and also in that next steps. We need transparency, as Carola said in the beginning, and also we need a public discussion to know where gaps, questions, etc. are. And my first step is to bring Data Saves Lives to Germany. So I'm doing something as a patient expert, but I think we need much more in that way also to bring patients, citizens, and all interested people on board. Thank you very much.
So when we get the slides, thank you. I'm actually timing myself. I have 4 minutes to tell you a little bit about rare diseases and starting to think about how the European rare disease community may fit into this new project. So my name is Victoria Headley. I'm a rare disease policy manager at Newcastle University in the UK. I've been very involved in the rare disease space in Europe for a long time. And I've also worked with some of you in the room on various eHealth projects. So rare diseases, if you ask me to describe the rare disease ecosystem in Europe, then the key thing to focus on are the European reference networks, because actually we are now a much better community than we used to be. Rare disease, by the way, individually is classed as a condition affecting no more than 5 per 10,000. But the vast majority of the 8,000 or so diseases that we have are actually a lot rarer than that. So individually rare, but they are classed as a group, including in European policies and legislation. And that makes it a much bigger health issue, not just for patients, but for our societies at large. So we have around 30 million people across Europe who are living with a rare disease, and there are all sorts of complications and negative impacts on the health and social systems as well, because of the nature, the complexity of the diseases, and the fact that the needs there are enormous. So if this project is interested in equity and addressing inequalities in access to care, you couldn't find a better group. So the rare disease field in Europe is somewhat structured at the moment because we now have 24 European reference networks. And we have one of these engaged in the project through Maurizio Scarpa. which is the metabolic network. So they're set up at a high level. And the idea is that across these 24 networks, which are virtual networks of our top centers, pretty much all rare diseases have a home somewhere. The text is very small here, I'm sorry, it's all squashed a little bit. The scale of this, so about a year ago, our latest figures, we had 1,450 full members, what we call HCPs of these ERNs. So these tend to be top clinics, units, specialized departments within our major European hospitals. And we also have over 150 affiliated partners. So this is important. So we're not just involving the creme de la creme of our hospitals, but we're actually bringing in centers which are keen to learn and keen to improve. So building that national capacity. They have a whole range of activities. They're really important because they're the first structures of their kind in Europe to not just address research and research needs for people with rare disease, but also to address care. And one of the big things that they've been doing over their first 5 years, so they were founded they launched in 2017, they've been focusing on how they can increase access to care for people with a rare disease, so that you're not just suffering because of the fact that geographically you're not lucky enough to live close to the, maybe 1 or 2 or 5 experts in your disease across Europe. They have actually, in those first 5-6 years, really been building capacity around data. So I think there's a much stronger awareness now than when I first met some of you in the rare disease space about what you can do with data, about data interoperability, about making data fair. I haven't got time to go into it, but there's been a lot of activity in the last 2 years around building and federating registries for rare disease. They're also doing a lot in the planned care, cross-border care space. So they have a virtual care system called the Clinical Patient Management System, which is allowing virtual consultations of top experts to provide information, second opinion, diagnostics advice, and that's really revolutionary. But there's been less of a focus so far on how we can really, in the rare disease space, exploit or mine the precious data that exists in hospital records. So there's a huge opportunity here because obviously the ERNs are made up of these top hospitals. So if you think about, the most basic level of engagement here in the project, this is a great kind of ready-made XNet, so that the 24 ERNs together, a network of those 24 ERNs, is a perfect XNet to try to bring what we're doing to the attention of our hospitals, our key hospitals that we want to be using these new standards. What we need to think about is how we go beyond that. And if we go beyond that, do we actually in the project envisage doing something more involved, working more closely, bringing in some of these networks, for example, our metabolic partner, to function somehow in one of the adoption domains, or to think about the bundles, not the bundles, the bubbles, bubble bundle confusion. So I'll stop there because I'm at 5 minutes, but very happy to talk about all of this, especially in the coming weeks, as soon as possible, actually, for me would be good. So we can really drill down how we work with these XNets, how we get them involved in the project. Thank you.
So thank you so much for this nice presentation and this discussion. So in this regard, I would like to invite Veli to speak a little bit about the next topic on the digital health uptake in other ecosystem projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Carola, Birgit, and Vicky, for delivering the inspirational contribution on behalf of Work Package 5. I would like to briefly draw your attention still to ecosystem opportunities based on 2 projects, one of which is digital health uptake, and the second one is a study called capacity building. If you can go to the next one. Yes, thank you very much. Digital health uptake is a support and coordination action which started in November last year. It will run for 2 years. It's the follow-up, so to say, of Digital Health Europe, which many of you do know quite well, because we were very active for 2 years, supporting lots of activities in twinning activities, especially on behalf of regions, but also consultations related to the European health data space, and we delivered many policy recommendations in the end. So digital health uptake has 3 main lines of activities. One is called Trader, the second one knowledge community, and the third accelerator. I have to say here that, for instance, Deepak and Zoe are responsible together with Empirica for the Radar, but also knowledge communities as well, so they can also answer questions around those concepts. But the Radar, instance, is has the aim of consolidating the landscape of digital health solutions, analyzing their impact and potential for further upscaling. So we will be actively screening for, collecting, but also calling for contributions of digital health solutions, practices, good practices, policies, strategies, and setting up a very wide repository, building, of course, on previous similar activities. And here again, some relevant topics that we wanted to highlight around primary and secondary use of health data standards. Of course, the European EHR exchange format, certification, other interoperability characteristics, etc. That's why I think this is important. Next slide, please. Can help me. The previous one. Yes, thanks. And the second line of activities around knowledge communities. The next one. Yes, it's kind of, no, the previous. Yeah, engaging European stakeholders. This is also relevant for the XpanDH ecosystem. Here we will be identifying enablers, barriers to uptake and implementation, also to standards adoption. We have been identifying those for many years, but here we want to consolidate this knowledge and engage European stakeholders, all kinds of stakeholders, to go into the details of this, help with education. Next, I can do it myself actually, but thanks for your help. And then based on all this, we will have very concrete implementation actions that do include consolidating, providing tools for implementation and uptake, organizing, supporting twinnings for adoption, and also some technical assistance and training, and expanding digital health ecosystems. So here again, deployment, best use of digital capacities and interoperability are very critical elements. Next one, this is the second example where we wanted to link to activities the capacity building on primary use of health data study, which we have started only recently for HDEA, with very active contribution and advice from DigiSante. and it will be running for 48 months, hopefully. We're coordinating this, but you can see here Deepak, Zoe are fully involved. PredictBuy and IHE Catalyst will also be supportive when I will tell you when exactly. So the goal is here, as Enrique mentioned in the previous sessions, to facilitate the development, strengthening of skills, abilities of the staff working on national digital health services. So the focus is fully on member states, authorities, ministries of health, and the national digital health agencies implementing policies and solutions. And we are starting with identifying key processes, resources, infrastructures that countries need to build their capacity for primary use of health data. We will be implementing a twinning approach, twinning between different countries, focusing on concrete learning experience, transfer of best practices, and facilitating cross-border interoperability between national systems is another goal of this study. Next. We are right now at the first step. The current phase is we are developing a so-called capacity building requirements catalog. And we will be doing, based on this as well, yet another survey among member states to capture the state of play, especially in interoperability, but also many other issues as well, because it is all about all kinds of digital transformation of healthcare. And based on the results of this survey, we will be mapping countries and also asking them what they would like to collaborate on, exchange experience. So we would be building pairs of a country who wants to learn something very specific and acquire knowledge, and another country which does have exactly in this domain very good experience, great policies, infrastructure, and lots of knowledge, and is willing to transfer this experience to another country. So it will be here a bit tricky because the mapping part might turn out being easier. So we will be coming with concrete suggestions to member states what these twinnings can be about, but they have to be willing and also able to engage in these twinning activities. And the twinnings will be done through visits. We will be developing a very elaborated program for those bilateral visits, and we'll be implementing this over the next year and a half or less. This is the so-called first wave. If it turns out successful and member states are continuously interested in continuing this in the Commission as well, then we will redo this in a second phase. Thank you very much. There might be another one. Yeah, this is just, this is my last slide, just to have here some key points from the capacity building requirements catalog. It will not only provide state of play for member states, but the Commission, as usual, has added another request to this, that this catalog and the survey, related survey, should provide the opportunity for continuous monitoring of progress in all areas. So it will be also a monitoring tool for the future, and then identifying the capacity areas in which member states can benefit most from knowledge exchange. And one of these capacity areas is definitely focusing on exchange of health data, infrastructures, data quality, interoperability, etc. So this is an opportunity as well to link XpanDH to this activity. Thanks very much. I hope I didn't take too long.
Thank you so much, Veli, for the nice presentation. So I would like to invite our next speaker, Michael Strübin and Dimitri Etrin, to talk a little bit about the industry expectations regarding the electronic health record. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and I would like to first invite Dimitri to join us, and if you could advance the slides, because then I will in parallel advance the my slide here in my notes. So first of all, quick 2 slides on Digital Europe, partly also to teach you how to spell us. We're all caps and one word, so not to mix us up with Digital Europe, the funding program. This slide here serves very well to illustrate how diverse we are. We are not a healthcare or health IT or medtech organization. Health is one of our verticals, but we have, of course, many companies in our membership that have an interest, including pharmaceutical companies. Nobody here is talking about involving pharmaceutical companies in here. Medical device manufacturers, tests, vaccine manufacturers, IVDs, consumer healthcare companies. We have people like Apple, Google, Amazon that make devices that could serve a medical purpose, data analytics, software. In a little while, I'll invite Dimitri to come here. Oracle is probably a software company, but of course, he's going to tell us more about what their things are. Cloud technology, we have Amazon and Microsoft, of course, also as a member. So this is who we are. Next slide, please. We at our Brussels-based trade association, we have more than 100 corporate members. We represent 35,000 SMEs, but we represent them through our national trade association. So we are a federation also. The downside of this, that we don't necessarily talk to small and medium-sized companies because they are not directly our members. Some of you in this room here represent industry in this sense, but we may not be always talking to you. We bring in these big multinational corporations, and that means that we're punching above our weight. We are very sought after. Expert organization, policymakers come to us for advice, sometimes for amendments. You may have heard that the European Parliament members sometimes get amendments from the industry. That's us. Blame us. We sometimes provide advice. We have good connections to senior level members of the European Commission. We are members of more than 16 expert groups, including the recently constituted expert level, high-level forum on European standardization. There's only a handful of other trade associations in there. There's no medtech, no pharmaceutical industry association. They're only horizontal ones. And I think with that, we also have an executive council, one for health, and that is that encompasses some senior level members, not just the usual people who are based in Brussels, but senior level representatives that come together for 2 weeks, 2 times a year, probably hobnob with commission officials. And that's also a good vehicle for placing messages from the industry to senior level commission officials and policymakers. Next slide. Now, let's go to what I'd like to talk to you about. This is one slide. If you could go 1-4. There are 2 things that we would like XpanD to accomplish. We want us all to advance a shared vision for framework of technical specs for data exchange. It has to be robust, safe, and secure. We need robust investment in data infrastructures, and we need to also pay attention to cybersecurity. We want this framework to be stable yet flexible. So we need to have agreed and binding specifications that can grow and accommodate innovation. compare this, for example, with consumer text or mobile telephony, where we also have a stable, secure ecosystem. And every year or every other year, the speed of mobile data exchange doubles. That's wonderful. That's great. We need to have that kind of ecosystem here as well. Of course, we're all aware that we do not have it yet. This ecosystem needs to be harmonized. We're dealing with a lot of legacy systems here. We also have a slow pace of healthcare innovation in the first place. We're probably one of the industries that advance at the slowest rate and as any other, for good reasons, because our emphasis needs to be, our priority needs to be to provide safe, affordable healthcare. And finally, we need to enable innovation and scale. We need to build on services, to build on this infrastructure. We need to enable innovation, for example, for software vendors like Oracle, medical device manufacturers. Think about radiology and imaging, but also personal devices, health and consumer devices. They also at some point need to be able to upload their data. I think Birgit was talking about this earlier, that she can't share data. She will not be able to share data in a year or two, but maybe in 5 or 10 years. So now let's go to what we would like to do in the next 2 years. That's my second set of bullets. We would like to ensure that in the next 2 years, we advance the uptake of interoperable standards and profiles. We need to see progress on the route to standards adoption. And we've had good conversations with Katrin, with Robert and others. We need to see more of those specs reflected in tenders and procurements. We need to also advance the uptake of European ID. The Commission is working on that. We need, if you talk to researchers, if they have one wish, they want a patient identifier that's valid all over Europe. Let's see whether we can also advance on that. Alignment and standardization across Europe. Expand needs to also work. I think, Veli, you talked about some of the ecosystem projects. We need to also be aware of the EHDS pilot that of course, yesterday Isabel talked about. The TEFs, the testing and experimentation facilities, and also some national and regional initiatives. Somebody mentioned the Medizininformatik-Initiative today. That is also an important data integrator. Final point here, offer opportunities for industry input. We are going to, when we reply and provide input to deliverables, we're going to democratize that type of input. So when you ask us for advice, it's not just me looking at it, we're also going to involve some of our members. I'd like to invite now Dimitri to maybe expand a little bit from an Oracle perspective. And while he's making his way up here, we as a trade association, it's ingrained and you need to be aware of this. We operate in a tightly regulated and legal environment under very tight legal constraints. We're not allowed to talk about market. We're not allowed to talk about procurement. We're not allowed to favor one company over the other. And that's why that's the service that we can do. But of course, Dimitri knows so much more about how a company like Oracle operates. And with that, Dimitri, please elaborate a little bit more.
Thank you, Michael. And first of all, I want to express my gratitude to Enrique and all the conversations that we're having here, because I'm still acting here as a guest. Either I support Michael here or Enrique, because we are not yet a formal member of the consortium, and I hope that may or may not change later in the day. But anyway, so like Michael said, probably everybody knows what Oracle is, but we are also changing with regards to specific industry like healthcare. A year ago, Oracle decided to play big in this market, and as all those big decisions, so they decided to buy a company for $26 billion, which was the largest health IT, the largest public health IT company, Cerner. And with that, we've gained kind of a significant market share, predominantly in the US for the EMR, electronic medical record systems and electronic health record systems. So that's how we started playing big, if you will. Even though before acquiring Cerner, Oracle did play a role in the healthcare market with some national implementations across the globe. Like in Australia, there is a national EHR system underpinned by Oracle technology. In Singapore, In Brazil, it's the largest implementation of a master person index, for instance, for 250 million patients, because Brazil unfortunately didn't go yet to the national EHR, so it's a long bumpy road for over there. But they started this with identifying patients, and they unfortunately stopped there. But it's still okay. Now, in terms of the, we're being a little more practical and what we are trying to achieve here, and I'd like again kind of probably put away my hat as an Oracle representative and express more of the industry expectation or what we are looking forward to those kinds of projects, and where we can contribute is that and this is changing. So I've been able, I was invited again as a guest, for example, to the eHealth consortium and what have been done here without industry. And I try to explain, what is being missed without industry being represented. And so we are trying to improve it here, but I also suggest to look at the representation as like we put here collectively in industry. But I think that among the, during the conversations that we had yesterday about the experimentations and about the adoption, probably it would also make sense to break it down a little into what industry means for implementation and adoption. So this isn't just an industry, right? So there's actually multiple stakeholders that are acting, and it could go as far as going back to the customer side and the public sector and the companies like ARIA or some other companies which are representing IT arms of ministries of health or of regions, and they are actually the implementers, so they act as industry in this regard. There's a lot of industry, there's a lot of countries, let's say, with a mature implementation processes, and apart from the IT arms of public, IT arms of public organizations, there is an implementation arm, which is the system integrator, which is an important stakeholder for adopting different solutions and products. And then there are vendors, and the vendors sometimes are quite distant from the real implementations. And there's also a mixture between that. There are companies which are more active in the implementation. There are companies which are more active only on the product development side. And then when we add to this part of the exchange format, we add the element of the EHR certification, which could rely on the interoperability standards, if you will, but may go more, the certification may apply more what EHR means. The question is actually, what do we want to achieve by this certification? What kind of quality we're expecting from products, if products are relatively distant from the implementation? So when this goes from the vendor to system integrator to an IT arm, either of a hospital or of a public sector organization, that changes. So basically it means there are 3-4 stakeholders on the industry side, which are actually responsible for both, certifying and guaranteeing the quality of those products and adopting it at scale, if you will. So as long as we just say industry, probably that doesn't help us. Hence, when we think about implementing and adopting certain things, we actually better have the representation of all different those stakeholders, and they would tell at every stage what is necessary in terms of what needs to be done for implementation, for the specifications, how those specifications could change from from country to country, from hospital to hospital. And that is the combined work of multiple stakeholders within the industry. So basically that is the thought that I would leave all of us here, is that as much as we can, we'd rather try to expand the representation of all those different stakeholders, and that probably will make it then more adoptable and more implementable. Thank you.
I think, yeah. One takeaway, industry is really complicated. Think about who you want to involve. And I think I'm going to skip over the next slide, which is just a quick presentation about who we are, and invite questions either now or later during the lunch break. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael and Dimitri, for this nice presentation. So I would like to invite Katerina and Giorgio to speak a little bit about Hospitals on FHIR on this point. So thank you so much.
up with this wonderful idea that touched me a lot. And the whole point is going back to what we have discussed, how we can mature the interoperability in hospitals, right? Thinking of hospitals as the core of healthcare, yeah, which saw that how it was difficult with COVID. So yeah, there is a framework. So here, I need to get to my t-shirt now.
Okay, thank you. So it has been mentioned in one of the previous presentations, the need of facilitating the collaboration among the hospital. And this is what Hospital FHIR is about. Try to facilitate this kind of collaboration, focusing on the interoperability, but it's not only focus on the technical part. Okay, wow. Something has changed in the presentation. Okay. Okay, is it bigger? It's for people with a problem with it. So the EHRxF Europe launch network of hospital and healthcare organization. And okay, see, I don't know, something Zoom. Okay. And the idea is to try to foster the adoption of FHIR to obtain then facilitating the collaboration among the hospital and having the relevant stakeholder engage in that process. And with the idea of having contribution on what is the supporting in general the digital transformation of healthcare. Okay. There's some maybe problem with the battery or something like that. Okay, let me try to go back because it was not the first one. Okay, okay. Yeah, the first one. Okay, great. Okay, okay. Just to be clear, is not a playground. It's not the idea of exercising thing. Is not another infrastructure. One question they say, oh, we are going to create a new infrastructure to connect the hospital. No, it's not that about that. It's not a consultancy program. We are not selling things. We are trying to facilitate the hospital to cooperate. And it's not an awarding system. We have a maturity level, but it's not the scope is to say you are good. It's just to help people to understand where they are in order they can improve. Next slide. Why? Okay, please scroll. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, the idea is to. Okay, so the as whatever you want. So the idea is to try to create a community of organization helping the adoption of the standard through the collaboration of through the hospital. How we would like to obtain that? Next slide. I don't know what will be shown, but okay. So how we would like to obtain that? The first thing we like to do is to try people to understand who is using FHIR. So, and this with the idea of creating a map where you can see what are the hospitals that are using FHIR for specific scope. Next. Then, okay, obviously, who is using FHIR, what they are doing, what they can learn from them. Next. Who should I contact? So when you click on the map, you can have some basic information about that. And the idea is to also allow the people to understand how mature this hospital is for that purpose through a maturity model that will be described later. Next. Okay. Say next. Yeah. Thank you. The other thing is that the idea is that you can also understand which kind of guide you can just go ahead, guide, and to say, okay, supposing that you want to know who is using the lab report of EHR, the European EHR exchange format, I can select that guide and see who are adopting or are able to use that. And this is the idea in order to facilitate, because otherwise it's not just a matter of who's using FHIR, but I need to understand what they are able to do. Next slide. Okay, so the maturity model is organized in 4 grade and 10 level. Next slide. Without going into detail, the idea is that you can, yes, go ahead. Aspiring are those that are that have expressed the intention to work with the FHIR. Preparing are those that are preparing to use that. The third one is those that are actually using with real patients, and the last one, okay, are those that are going beyond that. And if you can go to the next slide directly, for each level you have 3 levels. For example, from those in the work stage, you have from those that have started planning to those that are going quite almost ready to go in operation. If you go in operation, you are in the other part somewhere. you have people that are using FHIR, and then you have the those that are able to use specific guide and formalize that user so that you can actually check what are the status with that guide. And if you are beyond that level, mean that you are not only able to use it, but you are open and ready to cooperate with the other in order to facilitate the other to create this kind of network with the using FHIR. So next slide. So how to scale up the model? Next. There is an agreement. There are some gates, some objective for each level that the hospital needs to reach. For the time being, there will be an evaluation of a committee, but we can hope that with the cooperation with the hospital, we can even better formalize the way to move forward. The idea is to go grade by grade, with only one exception. If you are already using FHIR, you can, after registering and committing, you can go directly into the using part. But the idea is you go grade by grade, demonstrate that you are able to achieve that result. And obviously here, with the part of the maturity model, of the maturity and the readiness model for package 3, there will be a collaboration. Obviously, the hospital part will be one of the XNet of the project. So is the linkage between that initiative and this project is quite high. Next slide. So why an organization should, obviously because it should join this initiative, because it can get in touch with the top level community of practice, can learn from the other how to adopt FHIR. So and to learn not only from the technical perspective, but also to understand what are the logistic organizational problem to obtain that result. And also, if you are able and you can demonstrate that you are able to collaborate with the other, it might be also a chance to participate to project that requires some kind of capability of sharing data with the other. Next slide. Obviously, there is also the competitive advantage for not only for the hospital, but also for the stakeholder, because it can understand how and what are the hospital would expect from them. It might be also a space for a networking and business opportunity for the company. And so we expect that even if the main goal are obviously the healthcare organization, we expect also support and contribution and input from the other stakeholders. So thank you. I hope that I've given an overview of this is the link. Also, they would like to join the initiative, you can just register and then can start the process to move on the level of the maturity model. Thank you. Question? No question? Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Giorgio and Catherine, for the nice presentation about the hospitals on FHIR. So we would like to move forward for our almost our last presentation by today. I would like to invite Kathi to speak a little bit about what does mean interoperability for patients in this point. So please, Kathi, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. Good afternoon to all. And I thank Enrique for the invitation to present ECPC views on the importance of interoperability for cancer patients. I am the past president of ECPC and the chair of the scientific committee. And I have a personal interest on what we are talking today and in the project, because I am a twice breast cancer survivor and moreover a carrier of a rare mutation of BRCA1 and 2. So when I heard this word for the first time, interoperability, in early 2010 years at a congress from good friend and XpanDH partner Alexander Berler, it has stricken me. It does mean a lot to me as a breast cancer survivor, as I said, and a support contact for rare cancer patients in my country, traveling to another member state for cancer diagnosis or treatment using cross-border health care. Next slide, please. So we have heard a lot about interoperability yesterday and today, but let's go back to the basic. Interoperability is just what makes it possible to send with a push button on our computer or mobile or imaging or other tests of a patient traveling for cancer care to another country or just to another city in his country without carrying heavy bags of paper and imaging tests. It's the reason why patients can send healthcare data from their Bluetooth-enabled blood pressure cuff to their provider's electronic health record. What is the goal? The goal is to provide timely and seamless access to information that can optimize health outcomes and provide patient care. Let's see on this slide what happens behind the scenes. Interoperability is a complex procedure. To make it simple for patients and citizens, let's understand what are what is the function of each of the 4 levels of interoperability. The foundational level establishes the interconnectivity requirements needed for one system or application to communicate with another and receive data from another. The structural level 2 defines the format, syntax, and organization of data exchange. The semantic, the level 3, provides for common underlying models and codification of the data and provides for shared understanding and meaning to the end user. Organizational, the 4th level, includes governance, policy, social and legal organizational considerations to facilitate the secure, seamless and timely communication and use of the data. Next slide, please. A term that we have heard a lot the last few years is data sharing. But what exactly is data sharing and why it is important? What we call data sharing in Europe is called health information exchange in the USA. And as a verb, it refers to the electronic transfer of clinical information between disparate healthcare information systems while maintaining the meaning of that information. Without healthcare interoperability, health information exchange and other data sharing would not be possible. However, HIE is also a verb and is also a noun referring to the organizations within the USA that provide health information exchange technology and services at the state, regional, or national level. And as such, health information exchanges have supported public health agencies in their response to COVID-19 during the last 3 years, serving as hubs for rich healthcare data from a multitude of sources. Next slide, please. Interoperability benefits not only patients, but also healthcare stakeholders and health systems. It offers portability and accessibility and allows health information to be accessed and shared by healthcare providers. It offers collaboration. Health records can be securely shared with patients and other clinicians and healthcare settings to enable coordinated patient care. They offer efficiency and cost savings, and physicians and other medical staff require having the right information at the right point of care. If they lack specific information, they will consume more time getting the information they will or they will do without it. Next slide, please. Data is one of the most valuable resources in our time. And although digital records are constantly improving our systems, they are also raising concerns about privacy and data security. The European Commission has decided to take steps towards a more digitized and connected healthcare system between member states. The European health data space is one of the European Union's most ambitious projects ever undertaken, and it could be transformative for EU healthcare as we know it. The road will be long and full of challenges, but it could put the European Union at the forefront of big data and reshape the way how patients approach their health. Several EU-funded projects and one joint action, as well as our XpanDH, are projects that will converge into the European health data space. Next slide, please. Interoperability is of crucial importance for cross-border healthcare. Until now, the safe and efficient transfer of files was not possible, creating problems when cancer patients went to a cancer center in another EU member state. They had to translate and get printed test results, reports on their condition, imaging tests, prescriptions, etc., to make it almost impossible for the receiving hospital to use them. Therefore, the Cross-Border Healthcare Directive could not be fully implemented without the possibility to digitally and reliably transfer all kinds of medical documents, even handwritten notes of doctors, from one hospital to one in another member state. Thus, the right of patients to use the Cross-Border Healthcare Directive is hampered by the lack of interoperability. Next slide, please. The solution was the electronic health digital data space infrastructure, ensuring the continuity of care for European citizens while traveling abroad in the EU. EU countries can exchange health data in a secure, efficient, and interoperable way. Europeans can easily recognize the availability of the services, e-prescription and e-dispensation and patient summaries under the brand My Health at EU. However, My Health at EU and the services it covers are not yet available in all EU member states and, of course, not in my own country. Next slide, please. In cancer, interoperability is of crucial importance for cross-border healthcare and the operation of the ERNs, the European Reference Networks. Rare cancer patients often spend a long time to be diagnosed because such expertise is not available in their country, but might be in another. The ERNs are virtual expert networks across Europe to address rare diseases, and it should be mentioned here that rare cancers are the rare diseases of oncology. Being virtual expert networks, VRNs depend on interoperability to receive and exchange medical data and information. Cross-border healthcare, allowing rare cancer patients to be treated in an expert cancer center in another country, requires that all their medical history can be easily transferred based on fair principles, and equally that the cancer center in the receiving country can forward the patient medical treatment, prescriptions, and other information to the hospital in his country of origin. Interoperability is the facilitator of cross-border healthcare, of the European reference networks, and of the network of comprehensive cancer centers. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for your attention. And I don't know if we have more time, but I am available for any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Kathi, for this nice presentation. Thank you so much for being online. Next meeting, please come here to Lisbon to meet in person. Thank you so much. So to finish the online sessions today, I would like to invite our last speaker, the coordinator of the project, Henrique Martins, to say the few words. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the speakers. I only have one slide, also because we are getting towards the time, actually past the time. So first of all, if you have any questions, feel free to email all the speakers. You saw their emails here in the room online, so I'm sure they will be available. And yeah, so I'm supposed to write next steps. So let me see what I wrote when I thought about it. So first we have to do. I love to talk about interoperability, for example, but it's time to do. So now we have a few months to do it. And it's really pulling up our sleeves. Start experimenting with the exchange format today. If you are a researcher, so one area that we haven't touched in yesterday today is how are we going to tap into the medical informatics and research community, and this is something we need to start doing. Not just because it's good to do, but it's because when you start researching about it, you start publishing about it. And that's first one good way of communicating the existence of a format, but also it is a good way to bring critics and not just the enthusiasts. And we need a bunch of people that are critical and cynical about the exchange format and show how bad it is and how good it could be if they were the ones doing it, which is what you expect from a good academic open spirit. So that is one thing. And this can be done today. We don't need to wait because the material is already online that exists. It can already be criticized. It can already be an object of that. I can tell you that here in ISCTE, we have one master student doing his master thesis on the exchange format. Of course, I forced him to, but anyway, that's a detail. Is doing, but the funny thing is not an IT student, is an international affairs master, and he decided to do it on this area, which is interesting. Anyway, start refining the format and its implementation space for everyone, SDO, regulated policymaker. We didn't talk enough yet about the role of regulators and policymakers. We will need to do that conversation, particularly with what I call inspection agencies or regulator or third-party regulators that almost all countries have. And what is their role once the regulation is out? You know, is the hospital compliant or not? Is he offering the service to the citizens? At the end of the day, this is a regulatory affairs issue. And we haven't really started thinking about this in this light and teaching the regulators about how to regulate if healthcare organizations are actually allowing patients to transfer, use and whatnot their data using the format. Start coding. I learned this new word, startups, but also scale-ups, or just IT vendors, but also I've learned that we need to talk about implementers and so on, that wants to stay ahead of the game. So I came up with this new name for companies in Europe, that are the stay-ups. So stay up to the game, stay up to the exchange format. So I'll see if I can sell. This is not very good yet, but I will get a better brand for this one. It's not as powerful as Hospitals on Fire, which really is a powerful brand. We need to come up with a better one. Start demanding if you are a patient or a professional. So we need to teach professionals to demand the exchange format. And we had a very wonderful project led at the time also by Veli, where we looked at, together with Deepak and others, Zoe, about the delivery side, the demand side of interoperability. And we've identified that actually what is missing in this interoperability market is not just the supply of standards, or in this case, a format, but the demand for it. And that people know they have the right to have it is not enough for them to demand it. There's a little bit more to it. Start procuring if you are a health manager, and I think we have partners here that are capable to reach out into the health managers, health hospital administrators, health region administrators realm. We need to start talking and educating ourselves and others about the format. It's very complicated, but maybe object of an interesting short course, maybe offered by different universities, short course on the exchange format, and things like that. Start being proof of a new way of life achievement. So it's co-created, open, inclusive digital health enabler. So I think the way we create this thing, the way we'll do it also needs to embrace our EU values. And then finally, start today, do not wait for the project to end. And definitely do not wait for project deliverables. There's no reason why people should just wait until there's deliverable comes onto the website. So we need to find new ways of communicating the materials. If you have an idea, a suggestion, you want to add effort in kind and help, do contact us always. So that's my key messages for everyone in the room, key messages for everyone out there. And those are the next steps. I think I didn't forget anyone. Thank you very much.